Welcome to the Skill Touch Disrupt podcast, where we dive into the world of innovation and technology. My name is Malika, and I'm the founder of Skill Touch, which is a global tech recruitment company partnering with AI companies in the industry. Today, I have with me Mike Storm, who is the Chief Operating Officer at Neurons. He's delving in to talk about a bit more about his business and also the journey about AI. So, absolute pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much, Malika. It's great to be here.
Likewise. Well, Mike, start off by sharing a bit more about your journey and a bit more about how Neurons sort of has gone from a neuromarketing consultancy to the sort of the AI and data company it is today.
Definitely. And I think it's kind of a fun journey because we started back in 2013. Thomas Ramsoy, who is my partner, CEO and founder here, he had 15 years of research background in neuroscience and wanted to go to market and try to understand how do people really respond to various different, new innovation, advertising, all of these different areas, and help businesses better create things that matters for people. Right? And back then, we were really putting brain scanners and eye tracking and all of these like implicit measurements on people. We had to go in lab, we had to go into the stores, and we spent 10 years collecting this massive database about how people really feel and think around these experiences. And what was fun about it was at some point we looked at each other and we said, hey, there must be a smarter way to do this. There must be a way where we don't have to do all of these manual tasks ourselves, actually automate some of this. This was pre, you know, AI era, right? Like no one was talking about AI. AI was kind of a science fiction thing, and we were talking about these kind of weird movies where AI take over the world, and that was it. But this is 7-8 years ago, right? So it's not that long time ago, but a lot has happened ever since. So what we did was take our database and we were able to simply build predictive models. Now, this is a
Hmm.
type of AI, right? Where we use a high quality database to be able to predict a type of future or impact of behavior, right? So with a very high quality historical database, you can now predict maybe 95% of what will happen in the future. And that's what we're doing. So we're predicting things like attentions to advertising, memory, cognitive responses, all of these emotional and subconscious responses that people have. And we do that with 95% accuracy. This means the journey that we normally did was 3 weeks to 6 weeks of field, research and data crunching and reporting and insights and all of that is now done in 30 seconds. So we completely disrupted our business and made it possible to do everything we did before in seconds.
Wow. I mean, what sort of inspired you to take that transition? However, obviously, like you said, AI looked like it was going to take over the world. Now everyone's talking about it. But what was the ticking point for you?
So I'll say it this way. One was Thomas. He's kind of a crazy professor. He has all of these great ideas, right? He was already working on models and MATLAB and everything back in 2013, thinking about how can we predict behaviors from data. So he was super early on with this and started working on it very early. But I think the tipping point was really the moment where we got enough data to be able to show that models were good enough at predicting. The neural networks, like things like Google, made it very, available to be able to do these machine learning models. 15 years ago, it was impossible. You needed so much computing power, so much physical power to make it happen that wouldn't be doing it. So Google also enabled some of these things. And then we actually had a tipping point that was the worst and the best year in our business life. It was COVID, because
Yeah.
the moment COVID happened, all we did in research, putting things on people's heads, it was gone. From one day to another, we couldn't do what the business did. Luckily, we had precursed a lot with this work and prepared a lot of different things. And that meant that we ended up being in a situation where we could actually fast track the business into a software and AI business. And now today we have scaled this business with 500-600% since then.
That's amazing.
Massive growth still in the market.
Yeah, that's huge. And especially in the Nordics as well, because again, that's a very, you hear about these top AI companies, and it's mostly in the US but you've got quite a strong presence where you are.
Correct. Yeah. So we're very much, coming out of Copenhagen, Denmark is a fun thing because not a lot of, tech companies come from here. There are some really good ones, but we're starting to be better at it. But I think it all came from the foundations of science, right? And that
Mm.
then spit into this AI model that is now able to help people all around the world.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you talked about the gap between consumer and business adoption of AI. Why do you think businesses struggle to implement AI effectively?
I think it's a really good question. And I think it's an important question because the AI boom meant that everyone started using AI, right? And everyone was talking about, oh, it's so cool. It can create images, videos, we can create copy, we can change our emails, we can do everything with it. But the thing is that, and business does not see AI as a value unless it's directly impactful on a business ROI, right? It needs to be an ROI that actually makes the business more efficient, faster, more precise, or make it, disrupt some other companies, other things like that, right? And I think the big thing with the AI technology is that it has moved so fast, and these very big conglomerate businesses, they are very slow, right? So going from one strategy to another strategy, that can easily take, a year or two, but AI is moving so fast that you almost need to change your strategy every 3 months,
Yeah.
more often, right? So it has really become a challenge because the bigger companies, they tried to jump on the wave, and then they realized so much new stuff was coming that they were just buying hundreds of different AI solutions and no one was actually using them. They were never really implemented into the workflows. They never really created any impact. And this means there's research right now that 95% of all AI companies or AI services that were bought into enterprises have been shut down again because they never created outcomes, right? And that's a massive problem. And that lies on both sides, right? It lies on the business side and, of course, on the product side from the vendors.
How can their businesses prepare for these outcomes then and get ahead of the curve, especially when they've got to change every 3 months?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is to not try to change every 3 months, but actually to rather focus on what is the process we want to change. What is a very big, repeatable process, something we do over and over and over again that has a manual feature to it. It has some kind of decision making that has a bottleneck to it. I need like one person can only do it or something like that. Those type of processes is where AI can actually really enable business for ROI because that process might cost them, let's say, $100 million a year to run that process if they're a multi-billion-dollar company, right? Now, if they are able to automate just 10% or 20% of that process through AI, that is a 10, 20 million, savings in their back room, if you want, right? So I think what they need to think about a lot more, the businesses, is to figure out what are those processes and then figure out how can we solve those. Is it by going with more generalist AI? Is it
Mhm.
by going with more specialist AI like our own, which is based on a very unique data set? Or is it something internally where they need to actually build from their own internal unique proprietary data sets?
Well, you touched up a bit more about different aspects of it. How would you, obviously, it's been thrown around a lot. How would you define it? So you've obviously talked about those different areas of AI. How would you define some of those and what are sort of the common misconceptions around it?
I think the biggest issue that often happens when new technology comes out is the moment it appears, everyone believes it's able to do everything. So you start by having this big passionate belief that now this is going to solve everything for us, everyone is going to jump on it, and then you get realization, right? So that's
Yeah.
when you get this bubble, and then there gets normalization afterwards because people realize maybe it wasn't as good as we actually thought whenever we put it into and I think the way that it has happened is the LLMs, the bigger, large language models and the LLMs, they got so much attention because everyone could use them in some way, right? But the problem is for businesses, they actually very often couldn't apply it to a process because it was a generalist model. It was not good at anything specific. It was just okay at many things. So, like often I talk about this with the businesses where I say, see the LLM as 1,000 interns. You can make them do a lot of things very fast, and you can also train them by making them customized to be smarter on your business. But they're never going to be a lawyer for you. They're never going to be your specialist. There you need a different data set. The other side of it is the whole, specialist AI, right? This is where you find businesses or data sets out there that are proprietary. They are very specifically good at one thing. This is almost like seeing, as I said, the lawyer, the doctors, the people that are very good at one thing, but they're not good at everything else. These type of AIs are the ones you want to look for when you want to automate a very niche specific process. This can also be the ones that the businesses could build themselves, of course, either through getting third parties to help them or doing the internal process themselves. But when you have proprietary data and proprietary knowledge, that is where you can build niche AI solutions. These are often more predictive AIs, so the ones that we also work with, and the LLMs can be applied on top of those predictive models. And I think that's where the power often lies, is when you have a niche model that is actually able to predict something very, very precisely, and you use the LLM models to help interpret those type of findings and make them more applicable to the everyday workflows. So that's really the combination of predictive AI and also LLMs that we see as a major leap into the next stages.
Right. And I don't know if this is something you have hired or are looking to hire in the future, but companies are starting to hire heads of data or heads of AI or some sort of AI leadership. How does that sort of misunderstanding affect that then? Because like when someone also asks me, I need a head of AI, the first question I'm asking them is, well, what do you mean? Well, what kind of AI person? Because I don't think anybody actually knows what they're talking about.
No, and it's absolutely true, right? Often what we've seen in the bigger enterprises and the bigger mid-markets, again, they want to be AI first mentality. We've seen this everywhere. Klarna
Yeah.
did. They went out and they like stopped hiring and they made everything AI. Then they went back and hiring because AI didn't do what they expected, right? So there's this middle ground in between where you need to be thinking, but it often comes from top down. So a strategy coming from the CEO or something like that says, we need to automate things through AI. We need to be AI first. We need to have an AI mindset. Let's hire a head of or CAIO or something like that who takes a lead on this and makes it all happen. And then we just step away from it and assume it happens, right? Now, this is the same we've seen through years with these like innovation labs. I don't know if you've ever heard about this, but the big enterprises made these departments that were called an innovation lab. Then they hired a ton of innovation people. They put them in a separate office in a separate location, maybe in San Francisco in the Silicon Valley area. They made them make robots and all kind of cool things. The C-level came by and looked at them and they were like, wow, this is super cool. And then it just died there, right? Because it never got into the workflows or into the implementation of the actual businesses because it was just a disconnected setup. So what we are seeing today is if you really want AI to have impact, it should not come from a we want AI first. It should come from we have some things we can, optimize, automate, or impact. We can use AI as a tool to get there, right? So see it almost as when the internet came out, whenever the smartphone came out, all of these different things, they were tools to solve things that were already happening. They are not in itself, it's only good if people use it to actually solve something with, right? So the same with AI. It will be dependent on the process, it will be dependent on the people, and it will be dependent on how much do you invest into it as a business.
And then for a company that wants to adopt or sort of understand different aspects of AI, how can they really ensure that they are getting the outcomes that they want?
I think the big thing first is sit down and say we commit to wanting to do this, right? We don't say it, we commit to it. Because a lot of things are being said, but not committed to. We then commit the right resources to do it. We don't just hire a single, crazy professor that runs around about it. We commit to the fact that there needs to be resources and people to make this happen. Additionally, we then go in and we pinpoint what is the process we start with. Let's not take 100 processes first. Let's just succeed with one, because that one process will be the the kind of the milestone that people will look to. That's the North Star suddenly, right? So everyone in the business will look at the department that is being highlighted because they managed to downscale their cost with 50%. Their speed was upgraded with 20% and stuff like that. Just find one place to do it first and repeat that multiple times, right? Because I think the biggest issue is that they go in, they say we need it everywhere. So we take our 200 different offices, our 20 different departments in each office. And then we say, now go and make AI, right? And then it ends up being people using ChatGPT to optimize their emails.
Yeah. No, exactly. Well, looking forward, because I'm always excited to ask this question, because I also would love to know the future, but I don't think anyone does. What trends or changes in AI adoption are you sort of most excited about?
There's so many things happening right now.
There is.
I don't even like the problem was a year ago, we predicted it would take a couple of years to get to where we are today. So like things are just going faster and faster and faster, right? So I think what I'm really excited about is to understand, how fast can this really go and how soon can it actually become impactful for businesses and not just something people play around with. So that's one of the things that I'm really excited about is to see this change the way we work, the way we behave, the way we are together. I think in the technology itself, like right now that we're talking a lot about these like world models that are doing completely different things with AI than just predictive or LLMs. There's of course the whole AGI thing that is a little bit both freaky but also very interesting. I think what I personally care the most about because I'm an operations person, right? So I sit on the operations side. So I care a lot about the fact that we can maybe make a process that was normally driven by a human completely driven by AI. And I think getting agents to speak together, getting agents to work together, getting these niche models integrated with the bigger LLMs and maybe wrap that into the world models, that is something I don't even understand today what that will look like in 12 months from now. That's the most freaky but also interesting
It
thing.
is freaky. I mean, if that is the case, if it is just going to be agents, what are you going to do?
Well, it don't think it's gonna be just agents. I don't believe in a world where AI is doing everything. I believe in a world where AI takes over certain tasks, like repeatable tasks, bottleneck tasks, things like that, things that are predictable as well. That will be driven by AI, right? Like it was when you got the robot arm into the production facility, right? Like everyone freaked out, oh, we're losing all our jobs.
That's
Well,
true.
now we're just moving to a different job. We're doing different things. And I think that is also an important thing. I've spoken a lot to, insights people that are afraid of losing their job, creative people afraid of losing their job. What they need to do is just figure out what is my new job and
Yeah.
how am I going to be the one that actually makes sure that this becomes as effective and impactful as possible for the business, because then they will keep me, right? Like they're not going to get rid of you if you're really a part of that future. But if you just stand and you say, I don't want it, then you may actually end up in a
Yeah, you still need to have a human element into it. It's just about making your job a lot more efficient and faster, right?
100%, 100%.
Anyway, it was a real pleasure having you on this podcast. Thank you so much. It was a great discussion.
Thank you so much, Malika. It was fun.
Thank you.